Coming up, we've got a special report on the news behind the news. The rest of the story, as Paul Harvey would say, in Libya. But first, the rest of the news, the police state news. You know, yesterday, the CEO and main owner of Apple Computers, Steve Jobs, came out and said, hey, I've got health problems, and if they ever got too bad for me to continue my chairmanship, I'm going to leave. And so he's basically made that announcement. And then I watched the mainstream corporate whore media engage in a love fest about how humanitarian he is, how great he is, and how he cares so much about everybody. And I just want to say to Steve Jobs, you may be this big Zen Buddhist we've heard about all day, but I saw your company put out a lot of PR propaganda concerning the fact that the factories that you control in China have record suicides at them. In fact, hundreds of times the average that we see in other Chinese or even U.S. factories. And so that's something you guys need to answer for. Also, you have Al Gore on your board, who has palatial mansions all over the world and all these jet aircraft, who lectures the general public they shouldn't be able to take hot baths. And so you guys are always pushing carbon taxes while you're responsible for absolutely huge carbon outputs of the devil gas carbon dioxide generated from your server farms, which, again, I'm not concerned. The plants are really hungry for that carbon dioxide. But you say it's horrible and evil. And so before you prepare to leave this world and cross to the river Styx and give Charon his piece of gold, wouldn't you like to actually become the humanitarian that you've always claimed you are? I mean, I get really sick of the eugenicist globalists pushing the case to kill Granny, Bill Gates, and your other cohorts that came out of the same NSA, IBM nest, lecturing us all day from the West Coast and Silicon Valley. I mean, we're going to file a special report dealing with this later next week, but just look at the co-founder of Apple, who told major newspapers that he basically supports a transhumanist view of the world, and that the human race is destined to become a little more than house pets. You are the people selling this view that humans should just give up to your machines and give up our humanity because it's not worth anything. Well, if we're worthless, like the Chinese workers you've got to put nets outside for because they're committing suicide by the hundreds, if we are so worthless, then don't grandstand and tell us we're worth something when we buy your trendy, fancy, shiny objects. I mean, of all of these devices that are doing the programming, we're not programming the machines, they're now programming us. Yours are some of the prettiest baubles. But again, as you approach the event horizon, I beg of you to simply look destiny and eternity in the mirror and actually do something good. What's the solution? If Apple, the biggest corporation in the world, arguably, after ExxonMobil, came out and said, hey, we are going to charge a few dollars more for our iPhones and iPads and the rest of it, or maybe take a few dollars less in profit to certify and seal on our Chinese-made products that it was a living wage. I was reading where some of these workers have to chain their children up to power poles down the street every day, and they sit there starving and defecating on themselves while the parents hope to get enough money to hopefully feed them that night. I think with all your tens of billions, that you could shut up and stop acting like you're a good little socialist and lecturing us all day about carbon taxes and have a move to certify that your products are human friendly. You know, like on the back of the shampoos saying animal friendly. Animals weren't tested on. What about Chinese slaves? Were they tested on? And where'd you get that liver, Steve? That's the type of stuff I'm talking about here, okay? So before you make that jump into hyperspace, you need to decide, is it going to be down there or is it going to be up there? And are there atheists in foxholes? That's a question for you to be asking yourself right now, and everybody else that buys the Apple slave goods. I think the Apple slave goods are excellent compared to other slave goods. Every other major company's like this. We admittedly have them in our office. We admit that we're hypocrites here, but we don't own the slaves. And I would pay a few dollars more so that they could at least feed their children. Okay, I'm done, Steve. I know you're a big corporate winner. You're going to go down with the ship, and I understand. I just thought I'd, well, put a little angel on your shoulder and maybe give you a alternative. Now, that was my pontification for the evening, and it was quite lengthy. That's why this is a special report, not the news show, premiering next Thursday, 7 p.m. Central at prisonplanet.tv. We're seeing a lot of police state news out there, and, well, Big Sis, you know her, the jackbooted gentleman who was the former governor of Arizona. Well, Big Sis gives green light for drone that tases suspects from above, and it's got shotgun mounts, taser mounts. Why, it can do whatever you need it to do. And they're putting out all these great promotional videos showing them chasing the evil people that aren't submitting to the global system. And see, here's my issue with this. There's this giant arms buildup with our tax money in the United States and in other Western countries to give the latest high-tech gadgets to the police, who are just dying to try them out on us. And I've seen all the deaths from tasers and people being tortured with them for asking cops directions. And I ask the public, is this something you want to be part of? Is this something you want to support? Were you given a memo on this as a taxpayer to have these drones chasing you around in the streets? I remember IBM a decade ago funding the Digital Angel and seeing the Mexican Attorney General come out and say, I'm making my employees take these implantable chips. Well, now hospitals are pushing these on people, and parents are being told in the U.S. it's a great thing. And I saw a report that tens of thousands of people in Mexico and in other areas south of Mexico in Latin America are taking these in the name of protecting themselves from kidnapping. So we see more and more the mainlining of these police state type control grids. And finally, in police state news tonight, Natural News and Mike Adams have learned more about the Rossum food raids and other raids against dairies across the country. It turns out that just like in the raids against Amish that lasted in some cases over a year and spent more than $1 million, they send in government agents posing as health food conscious people to set up the Amish and others to beg them, in some cases for months, to sell them some raw, healthy milk. Then the police stage a SWAT team raid on the Amish and other groups so they can then show the armed raid to jurors and say, look, we wouldn't SWAT team somebody if they weren't a hardened criminal, put them in jail. Some of these people are facing multi-$100,000 bonds for the crime of producing and selling fresh raw milk cheeses that you can still buy at Whole Foods and other mainline stores for a limited time. So the police state isn't worried about the big banksters and their tens of trillions stolen of taxpayer money or the derivative scam. They're worried about people nationwide selling eggs, tomatoes, squash, and yes, raw, real milk to the population. Now, in some interesting news that isn't as depressing, we have a report here out of Reuters. Astronomers discover planet made of diamond. They've got radio telescopes that at hundreds and hundreds of light years away, in some cases thousands, can actually, with a spectrograph, pick up the signature of the planet. And the new planet is far denser than any other known so far and consists largely of carbon. Because it's so dense, scientists calculate that the carbon must be crystalline. So a large part of this strange world will be effectively made of diamond. Now coming back to a place a little closer, our little planet, third rock from the sun, here in the spiral arm of the Milky Way galaxy, to a place in North Africa where a dictator for 42 years has controlled the nation. And he's being exchanged for another dictator. But this new dictatorship is the plutocratic offshore central banks that are now admitting that 6 months ago, a month and a half before the UN resolution or the U.S. got involved in this new war that we were told wasn't a war and it was a kinetic military action, a month and a half before that was even announced to the world, and Obama told us it would last days, not weeks, we are now told that, yes, indeed, U.S. Special Forces, British Special Forces, NATO Special Forces were involved from the beginning. So it wasn't an organic uprising of the Libyan people against Muammar Gaddafi. No, it was Western special forces going in to the east of the country and being armed over the border from the nation of Egypt, and that those armed rebels tried to overthrow the government. And when Gaddafi resisted it and resisted the al-Qaeda forces, that's who they admit they are, the world was told he was attacking peaceful demonstrators. So we take you now to our final report of the evening, filed by Rob Dew on the subject of Libya and the unfolding humanitarian disaster.
NATO hands terrorists who killed U.S. troops control of Libya. Al-Qaeda gets a new home after the so-called rebels seized Tripoli. While U.S. troops are dying in Afghanistan and Iraq in the supposed war on terror, these same terrorists are now being handed control of an entire country and its lucrative resources. As a massive NATO bombardment of Tripoli aids the al-Qaeda-backed rebels in their overthrow of Colonel Gaddafi. Gaddafi himself has gone into hiding outside the city. Shortly after the start of the conflict in March, Hakim al-Hassadi, the leader of the anti-Gaddafi rebel army, admitted that rebel ranks include al-Qaeda terrorists who have killed U.S. troops in Iraq and Afghanistan. Al-Hassadi describes the fighters as, quote, patriots and good Muslims, not terrorists. As the Wall Street Journal reported in a piece entitled, Ex-Mujahideen Lead Libyan Rebels, al-Qaeda terrorists who worked directly for bin Laden were tasked with recruiting, training, and acting as frontline field commanders for the rebel army. In 2002, French intelligence experts revealed how Western intelligence agencies bankrolled the Libyan al-Qaeda cell controlled directly by Osama bin Laden to hatch a plot to kill Colonel Gaddafi that was foiled in March of 1996. Indeed, it was Gaddafi's Libya who put out the first Interpol warrant for bin Laden's arrest in 1998. Western intelligence agencies blocked the warrant from being pursued, allowing bin Laden and al-Qaeda to go on and kill more than 200 people in the truck bombings of the U.S. embassies in Kenya and Tanzania. Some of the very rebels now being funded, trained, and given embassies in Britain and U.S. were part of the al-Qaeda cell that tried to kill Gaddafi on behalf of the United States and Britain 15 years ago. Libya's future hinges on the globalist ability to lie long enough to get an occupation force in place. Richard Haas, president of the Fortune 500 line Council on Foreign Relations, has stated clearly that, quote, Libya now needs boots on the ground. NATO boots, to be specific. The UK has already admitted to having prepared at least 200 more troops to land in Libya at any given moment, and arrangements are already underway to tap NATO members for additional troop commitments. This is Rob Dew for Infowars Nightly News.
Well, great job this evening to our entire crew, and that basically concludes this special report. To be clear, we're going to be doing special reports that are more extensive, like the one you've just watched tonight, but we're also going to have the focused, hard-hitting, condensed news program that'll air Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. Central, that's 8 p.m. Eastern, every night for 30 minutes. But many evenings there will be expanded special reports, documentaries, exclusive live interviews, and even some live-style call-in shows. Because we've been leading the very cutting edge of alternative media for 16 years, and we're reaching so many millions of people. That's why we've built this new studio and are expanding. And what you're seeing here are just the very start and the beginnings of much wider things that we're going to be doing. And I want to thank all of you that are here at the genesis of this new operation.
You don't need me to tell you that humanity is in a deep crisis. Everyone can feel it. We know a tectonic struggle is now taking place against the forces of freedom and those who love darkness, bondage, and enslavement. Yes, my friends, evil is rising. But take heart, for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. Recently, New World Order operative Hillary Clinton admitted they're losing the info war.
We are in an information war, and we are losing that war.
The globalists are scared. They've overreached. The future of the info war is in your hands. Join PrisonPlanet.tv. Download the thousands of special video reports, ebooks, and more, and get them out to everyone you know. Continue to spread the word about the broadcast on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and every other globalist propaganda platform. We are going to use their system against them. The info war now goes into high gear.